Sorry, the microphone is a little out of sorts tonight. But Stanley Cook 43 Stone Creek Road. Of course, it would be wrong if I didn't do this, right? It's just be totally inappropriate. I just wanted to say several things about the work that was done for the study that Dr. Neely will present shortly. First, I've never worked on a virtual committee before. That was an interesting experience. We never met face-to-face ever, once. And I think we did a good job at making that work. I think it really worked effectively. Secondly, I really think it was an extremely good group of people that came together with their interests and their capabilities to really make this study work. We also had some great support from consultants, architects, others who really also made this work out extremely well. So I feel very proud of the product that we've turned out, and you'll hear Dr. Neely tell you about it. But I wanted to say
I was grateful and appreciative that I was able to serve on this committee.
Thank you, Stan. Thank you. Any other public comments? Yep, if you just go to the microphone and identify yourself by name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Bob Ford, 89 Bear Hill Road.
Just get closer to the microphone, please.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With the mask and everything, it's just hard to hear.
My name is Bob Ford. I'm with the North Andover Rotary Club, 89 Bear Hill Road. I just wish I am trying very desperately to get the word out. I try year after year. With COVID, we've been not active. But I wanted to make the people of North Andover aware, especially the high school and students and parents, in the high school. We have an educational, Rotary provides an educational opportunity for students to study abroad. Just very quickly, I just like to talk about the long-term program. We have a short-term program during the summer, but we have a long-term program where we send students out on exchange to other countries. They go out to Rotary. It's a Rotary, we don't just send kids our way. It's well supervised, well administered. Rotarians on the ground in the local community. They, after we take in applications and screen the students with interviews, screening the parents, determine whether we feel the student is capable of going away for a whole year. They leave in August and they don't come home until June. And it's a total immersion program where they get to learn the local the culture and language of their host country. They make international friends, not just the people there in their community, their host community, but also students who are coming, having their exchange in that same locale from other parts of the world. Rotary is an international organization, so we have Rotary clubs in almost every country in the world. And we are looking for students who would like to go out. We have had, in the past, 8 North Andover students who have gone out on exchange, on the long-term exchange. We've had a number of students go on the short-term as well. And in addition to just learning about the culture, gaining some fluency in a foreign language, they learn so much about themselves. They learn independence, self-reliance, self-advocacy. They grow in maturity. It's just a fantastic, the kids, when they come back, they're not the same as the kids who went out on exchange. And in addition, it is an exchange. When we send a North Andover student out, we bring a foreign student in to North Andover. We set them up, the local Rotary Club sets them up with host families. We get them enrolled in the local high school. There is no cost that is paid to Rotary. We're volunteers. I'm doing this on my own time, and I love it. But there is no cost to Rotary. There is no cost for attending the local high school. There is no cost for the board and room with the host families. think of it as a scholarship. All of that is paid for. I don't know any other international youth exchange program that offers that. The only costs are the students' transportation, they need to buy some insurance, part of the program, their own travel within their host country, and even some of them have an opportunity to travel outside of their country, and all under the supervision, of Rotary. So it is a fantastic program. I have a few things, if I can leave, it has just a little blurb about the program. It has a few websites that people can go to. It has my name and contact information. It's an educational program, which is why I'm here. I do appreciate North Andover High School has always been very receptive to taking in the exchange students that we bring in from other countries. One final point, we are hopeful that COVID will be under control a year from now, so that students will be able to go out on exchange. In the long-term program, they go out in August, they come back in June, some even in July, depending upon when the school ends. But they need to apply now. And if they go on these websites, they can find particular, a couple of the websites will direct them if they go on, click on different links. They can find the long-term application. That needs to be filled out online. We need to have the application by the beginning of November, because we start taking in the applications, vetting the students, deciding this fall on the students that we feel are qualified to go through this program, and then we conduct 3 orientation programs to get the kids ready. And there are, again, we've had a number of 8 North Andover students. I want to make it a lot more. So I won't take up any more time. I appreciate it. And where could I leave these?
Yeah. Thank you, Dr. Miller.
Very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
The one quick thing that I would say is, one, thank you for coming. In the future, if you're coming, if you could just let us know, then we'll make sure we have you on the agenda for that, so that we're able to have people kind of know that you're going to be presenting, and if they're watching, they may tune in to find a little bit more from it live.
I wish unfortunately, I wasn't checking your calendar, so
That's
I
okay.
only realized just yesterday, and I've been trying to arrange my schedule. I have another meeting to go to.
Okay.
But I thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. Okay. Any additional public comment? All right, we will move on here. Is the audio still okay? Okay, perfect. There is no recognition, so we will move to number 5, which is a consent agenda. We have 2 agendas for August 24th and September 9th. So I would entertain a motion to...
Can I make a motion to approve them both, or do you need them done individually?
They can be done together if that is the will of the committee.
So I'd like to make a motion to approve the minutes for both the August 24th, 2021 meeting and the September 9th, 2021 meeting as presented in the packet.
Second.
All right, is there any discussion on anything in any of the minutes? I'll just ask if there's discussion on the minutes of the 24th first. Right? Okay. Any updates or changes to the 24th? Okay. Any discussion or comments on the meeting of September 9th? All right, seeing no discussion, we'll call for a roll call vote. We will start with you, Mrs. Picard. I feel like my back is to you, but we'll start with you, Mrs. Picard.
Yes, and your niece is around me.
Okay. So I won't turn around. Mrs. Vichy Lynch?
I'll say yes. I can abstain for the 9th, or I watched the meeting, so I can say yes, whatever you want, whatever's,
You're allowed to say yes.
okay, yes, say yes, make it
Okay.
easy.
Ms. Petrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mably?
Yes.
And the chair votes yes, so that passes 5-0. Okay. I thought I saw students on the meeting. I don't see them there.
You
Are
have to
they?
talk.
Okay, perfect. I couldn't see you from the screen we were on, Ethan, so, welcome. The floor is yours.
Alright, so we're starting with, I know last time we suggested a trimester to semester feedback, but we wanted to give students more time, especially since they just had their first advisory, so that would be next week. There's a mass open house, and student masters will be running that on September 30th from 6:30 to 8:30. Future Day was on our early release Wednesday, on the 22nd of September, so that was completely hectic, but we got our quotas in. And homecoming is on Friday, October 1st. It's the day of the spirit rally. The first time we're getting to do it since like last year, which is really exciting. And Friday, September 24th is the club fair. It's run and organized by the student ambassadors and will be a fantastic event for students to learn about various school clubs. Spirit Week is next week, and we dress up for Monday our pajama day. Tuesday is monochrome day, which is a new day. It's where you wear one color for your entire outfit. Wednesday is American Day or Nationality Day, and Thursday is Sports Day. And then Friday is the fan favorite Class Colors Day, and it's the day of the spirit rally. And freshman elections are open, and candidates are currently submitting applications. Just to trace back to what we already agreed on, there's a new system in place with 4 elected officers who run for office, and the elected 4 who work with those selected positions. But later on, the top performing candidate will earn the title of president.
In addition, the junior class of 2023 will be holding a fundraiser for Chipotle this Monday, September 27th, where anyone can go and order between 5 and 7 p.m. And as long as they say they are there to support the class of 2023, 20% of their payment will go towards supporting the class of 2023. In addition, the drama day is holding its first full July meeting on October 5th at 3 o'clock after school. And they're also planning multiple musicals from later on in 2022. In addition, the North Andover School Committee choirs, after hearing the decision of the school committee going to be on a bus trip to Florida, are currently issuing advice to make sure that all the students and staff have as much safety as possible on any potential trips later on in the school year. National Honor Society had its first meeting today, actually, and is already planning various volunteering operations and events, such as the blood drive in October, tutoring for elementary, middle, and high school students through National Honor Society, and is starting to consider various service project ideas from its members. The North Andover High School Model Organizations has made merchandise for its members, and is already starting to think of fundraising ideas for possible trips later on in the school year. During Club's Oktoberfest is this Saturday from 12 a.m. to 6 p.m. And finally, a national competition, between various marching bands near North Andover, is happening at North Andover High School on Saturday, October 2nd. Parents from North Andover come support our local marching band, and as well, there are various volunteering and service opportunities, not just for students of the high school, but also for any parents who want to get involved as well. So it's a great opportunity for anyone who wants to help out with the marching band competition. And that is all we have for our report today. Any questions?
All right. Sorry. Can we correct the audio? We're already done. Okay, all right,
All
okay.
right. Thank you.
So, Ethan, can you hear us?
Yeah, did I have audio issues back there?
But we can't hear
But
him.
we can't hear him.
Oh, no, I can hear them.
Helen
So they
can, but-
just did their report for me. It was fantastic. You guys would have loved it.
So we could hear in this room, but other people were having trouble hearing at home, evidently. Thank you. Okay.
Are they still there?
They are still here. They are nodding.
I mean, if you can hear us, yes.
Yes.
Yes, you seem much better now, Ethan.
All right, so just to be clear, was it the entire time I was speaking, or?
If I'm going to be honest, I would say almost all of it.
That's terrific. Should I?
Sorry,
Yeah. Down there.
Yeah, yeah, it's much,
So there were definitely parts that we could hear, but if you don't mind just kind of hitting the high points again, that would be fantastic.
Of course. Just interrupt whenever if I'm cutting out. The junior class is having a fundraiser through Chipotle this Monday, and all you have to do is go say you're supporting class of 2023, and they will give 20% of the payment to the class of 2023. The Drama Guild is holding its first guild-wide meeting October 5th, so any students can come and join. The North Andover High School band and choirs are currently adjusting their trip because they cannot go to Florida, so they're making sure that anyone who goes has as much safety as possible. The National Honor Society had its first meeting today and is offering various volunteering and service opportunities to its members through the October Blood Drive, tutoring for all North Andover public school levels, and is considering various service opportunities submitted by its members. The NAS Model UN has made its own merchandise for its members to purchase. The German Club's Oktoberfest is this Saturday from 12 to 6 p.m. And a NESBA competition between the marching bands of this region is happening at the high school, and it is a fantastic opportunity to come support our local marching band and to have anyone from students to parents to anyone in the community who wants to help volunteer, just help volunteer and support our marching bands. Thank you.
excellent.
Thank you for both times, Ethan. It was great. So next time, Lindsay has to do twice the work, okay? All right.
Will do.
Is there anything else? Well, Lindsay, you still?
Oh, did you also not hear my part?
Nope.
We did.
I think we did. I just didn't, sometimes you guys kind of tag team, so I didn't know if there was anything additional.
Oh, that's all.
All right. All right. Thank you very much. You're welcome to stay. You're welcome to do homework.
Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank
you,
you.
guys. All right. We will now move over to Dr. Gilligan with the superintendent's report.
All right, I have a couple folks helping out with the superintendent's report tonight. It's going to be Dr. Mealy, so I'll introduce him in a second, and I should have our Director of Health and Wellness, Nurse Leader, Cheryl Barzak on the line, I
She
believe.
is. I saw her earlier.
I saw her.
She's here.
Okay, so we're going to start out with the Bradstreet School, the Bradstreet Memorial Wall update. For those who don't know, the original Bradstreet School, according to Stan Limpett from the North Andover Historical Society, was built in 1885, and the second Bradstreet School was built, I believe, 1912. And I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Mealy to talk about the memorial wall. Dr. Mealy.
So yeah, Stan gets to kill two birds with one stone today. He talks about the subcommittee he participated in and the wall that he helped make happen. He came a while ago to explain the project to the school committee, and we haven't had an update in a while, but it's finally taking shape, literally. I was trying to send myself some pictures, and it wasn't working. I took some earlier today, but I was out the other night in the parking lot, and a car drove up to check it out and then came around. I was like, who is this? It was late at night, and it was Helen taking a look at the wall. But it's
I was thinking, who is that guy in the middle of the parking lot at this time of night? And it was Jim.
So the holdup right now, it would be done, but the last stone, if you recall from Stan's presentation, it's a good-sized brick wall that's going to capture the stones that were part of the original Bradstreet building. And there's one that had to be made. It's the date of the existing Bradstreet building, 2017, had to be made. So they're just waiting on that, and then those get set in place and the wall gets completed. So it's got a fence around it right now. As soon as that comes in, they'll get it done pretty quickly. I don't know, Stan, if you want to say anything more about that one. Sure.
The other part of the memorial wall will be 2 plaques. One that describes the school, the former school, and its history, and a second which describes Ann Dudley Bradstreet herself, and her career, and her importance in for our town and for North America as the first published woman poet, actually the first published poet in North America, but also the first published woman poet. So those are going to be on the phase 2, so that this isn't going to be one of those monuments that 40 years from now people are going to drive by and look at that and go like, what does that mean, right? That they can, if they're interested, they can stop, they can read those plaques, and they'll understand why that memorial wall is there. So that's the intent, and I think it's going to turn out very well.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yep. Thank you.
Stan, thank you so much. Really terrific project, and just so those who don't know, the original Bradstreet School was named after Simon Bradstreet, who was the governor at the time, and the new Bradstreet School is named after Ann Bradstreet, as Stan mentioned.
And that is on the plaque.
And that is on the plaque, so.
Yep.
Outstanding. All right, Dr. Mealy, one of the questions that always come up is, how are the buses going? Transportation.
Yeah, especially this time of year. So we have to admit it's worse than usual. September is usually tough as we start school and the routes have to get learned and adjusted. Some tweaks have to be made. But it's been exacerbated this year by construction, by the transportation difficulties that the whole state's facing. I think we talked about this, that we were fortunate. We had all our drivers in our buses, but it's really impacting substitutes when bus drivers are out and getting those. And the extra, and those who are participating in extracurricular activities know this, that's been a real challenge, is getting buses for those. So we're working around other options for that as well, and Steve Nugent's been very active in trying to help with the sports teams. So it's more challenging than it has been in the past, and it's starting to get better, and we just ask for a little more patience. We are working on it, and we'll continue to do so.
Thank you, Dr. Mealy. We are fully staffed. As Jim mentioned, a lot of districts are struggling with unfilled positions without qualified bus drivers. So thank you. And now I'd like to introduce Cheryl Bazak for a quick health update. Is Cheryl there?
I'm here.
Hi, Cheryl.
Hi. Is there anything that you wanted me to focus on, or just an overview of what the COVID numbers are?
Just a quick update on how are the numbers, and any new information that's been coming out from the state. Anything that you'd like to highlight tonight?
So we currently have 28 active cases in the school, across all the schools. We are continually moving forward with the test and stay program that I talked about last time, where any close contacts in the school district can opt to be COVID tested each day, and then they can stay in school. They are still considered close contacts, but by monitoring them daily, they can continue to come to school. The way this is explained is that school's a very managed environment. There are teachers that are monitoring students. Masks are worn by everybody. The air quality is measured and monitored. We have hand washing, and so it's students are less likely to test positive because of this environment, and that's why we're able to do this program only in school and not outside of school. Outside of school is less managed. People in their homes tend to be closer together. They're sitting together watching TV. They're not wearing masks. We've had some out of school positive cases from hockey teams or from gatherings in homes. So we can't do test and stay for those students for that reason. We do it only for students that are in school. The consent form, I know we've had a lot of requests for it to be changed to not include pool testing. Again, on the DESE webinar today, they cannot change that consent form. I continue to we are not doing pool testing, and the only way to be part of the program is to unfortunately sign this consent form. So I don't know how else to get around that, except that we certainly, we are definitely not doing pool testing, and we don't even have the supplies for it. We have plenty of supplies to continue with test and stay, and we actively are testing 30 students currently this week so that they can stay in school, so that's good. Since the beginning of school, we've had 42 positive cases. I told you we have 28 active now, and we've done test and stay for 68 students. And we talked with the health department today, and he's going to work on getting vaccine clinics set up, hopefully in the next week or two. So that will get more and more students vaccinated. We're at about 75% of our high school students vaccinated as of this week. And that's all I can think of if you have any questions.
So I think the committee may have some questions for you, if you don't mind. We'll
Sure.
start with you, Mrs. Picard.
Yes, thank you very much, Nurse Barzak. You are a wealth of knowledge and so helpful to everybody in our community. I have two questions. The first is, can you explain to us what the close contact rules are at school now? I think they've changed since last year, and they're not totally clear to me. So if you can explain them, that would be helpful. And also maybe direct me to where I can find them.
So they should be in the document that's on the website, the FY22 guidelines, and they should definitely be there, but if not, I'll check and make sure they're there. So a close contact definition hasn't changed according to Department of Public Health. The definition outside of school is, 6 feet for within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes. In a school, that is less than 3 feet for more than 15 minutes in the classroom. That's with your mask on. If you're at lunch, it's 6 feet. So we have had more close contacts at lunch because it's a little bit more difficult to be 6 feet. When you're outside, you are not considered a close contact ever. And when you're vaccinated, you're not considered a close contact for school for contact tracing. Buses are also excluded, and that's the definition for the school setting.
Thank you. That's helpful. And it is still a little confusing, not for any fault of yours, but that's a lot of different steps that was much narrower last year. So I appreciate that, and I will look and see if it's on the website at some point. I'm sure it is. It's just, it's just nice to see it. It's nice for me to be able to see it.
And we're trying to continue to develop new tools. Desi did provide a flow chart, which we like, but we're trying to change it a little bit to meet our needs, and hopefully that will be up. One of the nurses also put together a newsletter that I have that has a lot of this information on it. We hope to get it out either tomorrow or early next week.
Thank you. And then the other question that I have is, so you do symptomatic testing and test and stay. If somebody in a symptomatic test, and we still have the 30-minute, the health room, right, for the testing, people with COVID symptoms, they go to a separate setting than somebody who has non-COVID symptoms, or we don't have that?
Not this year. So this year, if possible, we do have it in a couple schools, but most schools, we no longer have the medical waiting room. But
Okay.
Yes, we are also doing symptomatic testing, and that is using the same Binax Now test. And again, parents have to consent. So that's on that one consent form. You're consenting to both symptomatic testing or test and stay. The nurse will certainly call you first and ask, you can either come pick up your child and get them tested, or we would test them here. Again, these are for mild symptoms. If someone had, there's a list that's posted everywhere, and the 4 major bold symptoms of fever, difficulty breathing, loss of taste and smell, that's highly likely COVID, and really you're out of school to be tested to get a PCR. But for mild symptoms, we can do this antigen test. If someone had a headache or, a sore throat or a cough or had allergies, And many times the student can stay in school. We have had a few of these come positive, and the students were positive, and they, then now are in isolation at home. I would remind people though that we just can't, please don't send your child to school sick for the nurses to test them. We just are sending them home. That's not the goal of this program, and we're limited in the amount that they're going to continue to send us. I mean, we do have very strict guidelines that it's for test and stay of only close contacts and then symptomatic students per the nurse's judgment on these like minor symptoms.
And so if a child were to test positive and be sent home for isolation, how long is that lasting? That number of days has changed over time.
So that number is still 10, and then they return to school on the 11th day. So it's 10 from your positive test or your first symptom. And then close contacts that aren't part of in school, that actually hasn't changed. They can still test on day 5 and then return to school on day 8. If they choose not to have a test, then it's 10 days. And they come back to school on day 11.
Thank you
And
very
I'll make
much.
sure that that's posted, because you're right, we haven't used those for a while.
I just think it's changed over time, and just hearing it again is helpful to me. So I appreciate it. Thank you, Mr. McDevitt.
Okay, perfect. All right, we'll come back to the room here. Mrs. Vichy Lynch, any questions?
Nope, no questions.
All right. Ms. Petrowski?
I don't think I have any questions. I just wanted to say thank you to the nursing staff, because I know they are doing a tremendous job and working their tails off, and we appreciate it.
Mrs. Maben?
And I just have one thing to share, and I'm guessing that Cheryl probably was part of the team that wrote this, but I got something in the mail, or my email yesterday, through like the town notices, that was called Isolation and Quarantine Information for All Indoor Sports and Indoor Activities in North Andover. And that explained about isolation and quarantine, and I thought that was extremely helpful. And it's probably on the town website, and maybe it's on our COVID-19 area as well, but if it's not, I found that very easy to understand, and it was very clear. So I highly recommend putting that somewhere that we can get at, because I thought it was useful.
Great, thank you. So I just have 2 quick questions. You mentioned the vaccination rate at the high school, and you mentioned the middle school, but I don't know if you shared a number there or not.
So the middle school numbers, 6th grade, as you can imagine, is low, because many 6th graders are just 11. So they're at about 4%, and then 7th and 8th grade are 64 and 65%.
64, 65, okay. Okay. Perfect, thank you. And then you mentioned test and stay, that we've tested about 30 students, is that correct?
So today, there are 30 in the program. We've tested 68, I believe. Yeah, 68 so far since the beginning of the year.
Okay, and I'm not trying to split hairs, but when you are counting them, is that 68 tests given or 68 students testing 5 days each? Do you know what I'm asking?
That's 68 students at 5 days each.
Okay, perfect, thank you. I just think it's a different number there. And that's at all of our schools, correct?
That's at all of our schools.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, thank you so much to you and your team.
Yeah,
And I would just add that I was able to find that very easily on the website. So thank you. It is right there in the guidelines.
And I would just echo some of the comments. I'm really appreciative of Cheryl and her whole team of nurses. They've taken all of this on, the test and stay. You know, it's a state program, and they got it up and running before the state even got it up and running. And they're doing a ton of work. They're working all the time, and they're doing the regular jobs too, taking care of students with 504 medical disabilities, all sorts of regular school issues. It's a fantastic team, and I just don't know what I would do without them. They're tremendous, and I appreciate it, Cheryl. Last but not least, when we get the vaccine clinic date, we will blast that out. We really promote that. That's really important. And if anyone didn't hear Ethan, I think I heard him at the end talking about the NESBA marching band contest on October 2nd. It's like one of my favorite things of the year, so it's really cool. I thought I'd mention it one more time. And that's it for the superintendent's report.
Perfect. All right. Thank you, Cheryl.
Thank you.
All right, so I will be brief in the chair's report. I just wanted to say, just briefly, you know, the past couple of weeks with starting school and coming back, I really feel like things are taking a turn to just things being a little bit more traditional. I had an opportunity to be at the Fall Festival on Saturday at the Common, which was great. It was very well attended from what I could tell. But what I thought was really amazing too is just seeing the students out. Even today, we're at Atkinson. There were students that were playing in, I think it was booster football, you know, the high school sports, fans in the crowd. It was amazing. If the wind is right, I can hear the bands play and practice. And so it was great to see them. And I think for a lot of people, if they don't really realize it, you know, last fall it was extremely limited. The fall before that, we had Triple E. So to kind of even have things at the nighttime level in town is just, it's feeling a little bit more natural. So, and that's all I had. We will now, I think, turn it over to you, Dr. Mealy, for the school capacity project. And are you presenting there? You are. Okay.
All right, thank you. I'd like to start by just introducing the members of the subcommittee and the consultants who are here this evening. Representing the school committee as the chair of the subcommittee, Vichy Lynch is here, obviously. Stan, we've heard from, as our resident institutional knowledge on the subcommittee. Christy Martin from Kittridge is here, thank you. And Bill Peters and Al Cuevas, is it? From the Mount Vernon group are here as well. I'm going to ask them to come up at the end of the presentation. There's a couple of things that I think they can speak to better than I can, and also to answer any questions that the committee might have. So, without further ado, this is to review the final recommendation of the subcommittee with the hope that it's voted on this evening to be sent to the Facilities Master Plan Committee. The projects include, and again, as a reminder, we've gone over this quite a bit, but the focus of Facilities Master Plan Phase 1 were town projects, and the focus of Phase 2 all along was going to be school projects, and that's what it is. So it's Atkinson, Franklin, Kittridge, and the North Andover Middle School. It also does include a couple of town projects, Fire Station Number 2 and the Youth Center. Specifically for the school department, what we were trying to address is that we have some aging schools, the 4 that I just named. We want to ensure equity and provide needed support spaces for our 21st century learners. We want to be able to impact class size. We want to be able to build capacity for future growth instead of always having this bursting at the seams situation. And we want to finally be able to eliminate the portable classrooms that have long outlived their shelf life. MVG conducted very thorough building assessments. Those are available just as if all the information that we talk about is available on the website that we showed you at the last meeting. And those building assessments are there as well. Basically, they show the older schools are in need of renovations, no surprise to anybody, but also the mechanical systems need to be modernized. The schools need to be brought up to modern code, including adding fire suppression, which is sprinkler systems, at the school we're in, Atkinson, and at Franklin. And the schools need to meet ADA requirements, and we need to be able to provide environments more conducive to learning for our students, and have the ability to improve indoor air quality. We've done the air quality testing. It does meet the standards, but we were limited in the types of filters that we could add to our systems to improve air quality because the systems just can't handle the stronger filters, the better filters. So while they do meet the standards, it could be better, and this would give us the ability to do that as well. So specifically, you have Atkinson Elementary School, which was built in 1964. It was originally the middle school. It was added on to, you can see in the corner here of the building, the white roof, and then the one next to it diagonally. Those are the 2 portables that have been here since the late 80s. The flat roof, which is this section here, has been actively failing, and we've been patching that as best we could and trying to buy some time. The interior is mostly fair to good condition, or good to fair. Needs renovation, as we said, to meet ADA requirements and modern codes. We need to replace the steam boilers with hot water. The piping is 50+ years old, and we are constantly repairing it. And the same with the electrical, mostly original and in fair to poor condition. And as we said, no fire suppression system, no sprinklers. They weren't required at the time, so they were grandfathered in. Franklin, very similar, built in 58, extended in 67, and the portables, which are on the left side of the building as we're looking at it here, were added in the around the same time as the Atkinson portables. Same pretty much condition. Exterior is mostly in good condition. Interior is fair to poor. Needs the same ADA requirements in modern codes. Steam boilers replaced with hot water. The piping and electrical in the fire suppression system are pretty much the same. And Kittridge is our oldest school at 1949. It was the white roof you see here are the 4 modular rooms that were added in 2010. In the big green, everyone knows, is our Kittridge gym, which was added in 2013. And similarly, its exterior is in good to fair condition, and the rest is fair to poor. So same conditions, even more so. This one's exacerbated by the layout, extremely difficult layout to add to, which is why we made the recommendation we did of building new at this building. And the North Andover Middle School, built in 1953 as a high school, extended in 62 and 95. The most exteriors and interiors in good to fair condition, needs the same renovations to meet ADA requirements and modern code. And the last bullet actually is being taken care of. The performance center floor needs to be replaced, but insurance covered that, and so it's work that was supposed to be completed over the summer, but like a lot of things, we saw delays in that schedule, and they just started back up, and they should be done with that pretty soon. So we also, as we indicated, want to address equity, and that came out in the school capacity analysis. All schools should have space to allow for growth. All schools should have space to impact class size, should have appropriate support spaces, should have dedicated, appropriate specialist spaces, and should provide environments conducive to learning. I'm going to just bounce out of this for a moment and kind of quantify this with an example. So this is going to be, let me see if I can.
I'm guessing we don't have that, right?
No.
Okay.
But it's okay if you don't. And it's going to be tough to see, but I can speak to it in that each school has a current inventory of space.
Oh, right.
And you might think that in a certain school, they have a reading room, they have a library, they have, classrooms, and they have all these spaces, but what are you talking about? Well, the problem is that Kittridge is a perfect example. A lot of the rooms that are in Kittridge called either the guidance office or the reading room are converted closets, no windows and tiny. But that's what they're being used for because that's all that's available in the building. So what this analysis does is show for the art room, the recommendation from MSBA is that an art room be 1,000 square feet. We've got a converted corridor that is now the art space in the basement of Kittridge that's 700 square feet. We don't have room for music. We used to have a room, but it's now being used as a classroom, so there's no music room. Reading is a converted closet at 140 square feet when the recommendation is 500 square feet. So you do that for all the spaces, and you see that we have 32,707 square feet at Kittridge when what we really should have is 63,812. And they're squeezing it in. The per student square footage recommendation for a school that's less than 300 students is 180 per student. We're at 146 because we have 224 students in that space. Really, based on the MSBA standards, the most we should have in that building is 182. Then you would have enough space for all of these because you wouldn't be using all the classrooms, you'd be using those for something else. So,
did you just say 182 students?
Would be, right, that, what the existing square feet.
Right, would be 182.
Correct.
Kittridge, if I remember correctly, is what, like 340?
Well, it's been as high as 320.
Okay.
Right now, it's at 224.
Really?
It's at 220, yeah, 220.
Oh, well, kindergarten's
Because we
up
moved
too.
kindergarten
Sorry,
out,
okay,
so.
all right.
Yep.
That's the one thing that people forget all the time, is we created that space.
Right. So I just wanted to quantify for people what it means when we say it's just doesn't, you know, this is not sufficient space for what we're trying to do with our students. So go back to the presentation.
Is that available
you've shown us
online?
that
too?
before.
Yeah, so
But, like,
that's one,
public
yeah,
view, 'cause
so
that's
it's
huge.
it is huge, and I know it's huge, and that's what, I've been working on it
Okay.
and trying to make sure I've got it accurate.
Yeah.
And the intent is I wanted to show the example and then finish it for all of our elementary schools and add it to the final report.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you.
And we also saw it in the survey results, where the parents at Sargent and Thompson, for the most part, felt like their space was sufficient and the resources at the schools were sufficient for their children's education, but Atkinson, Franklin, and Kittridge did not feel that way. And then enrollment projections, we want to make sure we build capacity into our schools to accommodate growth. Since 1990, enrollment has increased at a steady average rate of 35 students per year. We were very sensitive to the fact that during the effort for foster farms, the enrollment projections were way off. They were overstated. And when looking at it, it was apparent that it was that way because they used the 5-year window just prior to when they were discussing, and there had been a spike in growth. And so they projected that spike to continue, but it didn't. So you did not see the growth that they were projecting. Being sensitive to that, we went out 30 years in our look back at enrollment and found the trend to be a steady 35. There were dips and there were peaks, but the steady 35 per year. And we also commissioned 2 independent from each other, firms to do the enrollment projections. And when you take the average of the 2, it was right around 35 as well. So, and you can see from the chart, you can see peaks and you can see some dips, and this one in particular is being attributed to COVID. It still remains to be seen what the impact is going to be on our enrollment, but that line here is a steady growth that we're projecting of 35. And that's consistent with the estimates we have for the developments that are occurring and what we'll see from them as well. During the process, we try to solicit as much feedback as possible. We identified the options and vetted them with the public. We did surveys with the community and with the staff. We had a great response from both on the surveys. We conducted 3 public forums. They got better attended as each one went along, and took feedback from both the surveys and from the public forums to ensure that we were considering all possibilities and to inform our final recommendation. And we've been providing the website with the information right along. Some of the feedback that we got when we asked about what's the most important aspect of these projects, class size was number 1 at both middle school and elementary levels. And then behind that somewhat was minimizing the need to redistrict and minimizing transitions. But definitely class size was the most important. 6th grade placement was very important to us because it seemed to be the main issue for each option. Do we put 6th grade back in the elementary? Do we have it be lower in upper middle school? Do we keep it as a 6 through 8 middle school? And so we wanted to get the sense of the community on that, and definitely the current model of 6 to 8 was preferred by both staff and the community. And then we asked them about the options that we had presented, and the existing was definitely the preferred, had the most support. And the second one was the one that had 2 middle schools. And it was interesting when you kind of dig down into that data. Not surprisingly, those who lived the furthest away from the existing were the ones who were in favor of
That makes sense.
a second middle school. So that made sense. Last meeting, there was a question about One of the other options being the lower and upper middle school. And while it was third in support in both surveys, it has been one that people have been asking about. So we thought it would be good to use that as the example of how this process worked, where we compared all of the options and identified the pros and cons. So I'll start with the one recommendation we're making, which is 1A, one being renovate Kittridge and the other schools. 1A is build a new Kittridge. So the 1A option is, just as I said, renovate and add to Atkinson, Franklin, build Kittridge, renovate and add to the middle school, maintain the current grade configuration, so you can see those on the right of this chart, and build new Kittridge. The pros of that, limited need to redistrict. All the schools stay pretty much as they are. It's the closest to the status quo. There would not be additional transportation costs. It would be the lowest operating cost change of any of the options. No change to curriculum integration and collaboration. All the teachers would stay where they are. Maintains the same neighborhood schools, which was important to the community. No additional transitions. So that means that if we added the upper and lower middle school, now you're adding another level for parents to try to support if they've got more than one child. And then minimal impact to teachers and less disruption for students due to construction. It would be the easiest one to implement, although I don't want to say easy. It's not going to be easy, and that's what I'm going to ask Bill and Al to talk about. The cons: maintains a large middle school. We have one of the largest middle schools, as Dr. Gillian reminds us often, and it would maintain that. Could still have inequity based on demographics or socioeconomic variables at our elementary, but construction's not going to impact that. We're going to have to do that some other way. We still have a high concentration of activity on one site, where we are right now. We've got Atkinson, Bradstreet, and middle school. It can get dicey at times, and does not necessarily address concerns of those who feel a different grade distribution would be better. But our research showed that this is an interesting point. There wasn't anything that said, oh, this way is definitely better than that way. There was research that said that the middle school model works well, and there was research that said upper and lower middle school model works well. But these projects are critical to us, and for us to get them passed, we don't need to be having that discussion about grade distribution and where the different grades belong. When the community has indicated they feel this current model is working, we should be focused on getting support for the projects. So option 2, which would be the upper and lower, the only difference being that you then have 4 elementary schools you'd have to redistrict around the grades 1 through 4, and you'd have Atkinson would be renovated to become the lower middle school, grades 5 and 6, and the existing would be 7 and 8. So the pros for that: allows for more space at the middle school. Actually, you'd have more space than you needed at the middle school because you'd only then have 2 grades there. Ensures more equity from 5th grade on. Right now, all of our students come together from 6th grade, so they're all getting the same education and the same resources. That would happen 1 year earlier in this model. It would allow for collaboration, similar to what we did with the kindergarten, where all the kindergarten teachers are now together. So all the 5th grade teachers would then have that ability, like our 6th through 12th grade teachers do. It provides an intermediate transition for 6th graders, for those who might not be comfortable going up to the middle school. Creates a campus for the 5 and 6 here and the 7th and 8th over there, but on one site. Creates interaction among students from the whole district 1 year earlier, and it would decrease the number of elementary students. The cons: it would require 5th graders to travel further. Instead of their neighborhood school, they'd have to travel to a centrally located middle school. It would eliminate Atkinson as an elementary school. It would add another transition for students. So instead of elementary to middle school, you'd go elementary to lower middle school to upper middle school. Could impact parent involvement by asking parents to support another level, spreading them out further. It challenges vertical integration of curriculum between 4th and 5th grade, which is easier now because they're in the same buildings. Specialists may need to travel more and not be able to cover as many sections as they do now. Transportation would be more complicated and cost more. It takes fifth grade teachers out of the elementary schools, and we saw how that impacted when we took the kindergarten teachers out, changes the culture of the school. Fifth grade start times would be earlier than they are now, and this option would cost more. So given that, and we did that with all of the different options, and we did that, we showed you that when we presented back in the summer. Our recommendation is to maintain the current grade distribution, maintain our neighborhood schools, add capacity and renovate to address the items we've been talking about: equity, support spaces, 21st century learning, class size and enrollment growth. Finally, remove the portables while still being fiscally responsible. Specifically at Atkinson, we would remove the portables, we would renovate the school and construct additional space. At Franklin, we would do the same, but we would also build a new gym, because their gym is not a gym. Kittridge, we would keep the existing gym and recommend building on the same site. At the middle school, renovate and construct additional space, and at the ABECC, build a larger gym on the site of the preschool playground. So to give you a visual, I'll show you each school. This is Atkinson. The blue is the existing, and the orange or salmon is what is it, and this is just a concept. This is not what's definitely going to happen. It's just when you look at the site and say, what could they possibly do here? Here's one possibility for each of them that could work. So when you look at Atkinson, we could add a second wing and connect the two to add the additional space here. It would still maintain green space. It wouldn't impact the playground. The new playground is above what shows as Beacon Hill Boulevard here, and you have all the space of the athletic fields across the way. For Franklin, what they would propose as a concept, the gym would replace the portables in the upper left corner there, and then in the back, they would connect the wings with a back section that would extend that one wing and then connect all of them together. For Kittridge, if we were going to renovate, it would look like this, and as MVG, as Al and Bill can attest, this would be a difficult renovation. Yeah. But it would be possible, and it would look like what you see here. And a possible concept for building new would be, the blue you see would be the modular classrooms in the gym, and then you'd have the front be administrative, and then you'd have classrooms and ancillary spaces and all the other spaces, as you can see in the orange there. And again, plenty of room on the site. This one shows, you can't see it too well here, but it will be available on our website. It shows the front being the pickup and drop off. Another possibility certainly would be to allow us to go all the way around the building to get cars off the street and maintain one-way traffic instead of two-way. And again, these are just concepts. And speaking of concepts, one of the ones that people are always asking about is the possibility of the middle school. Where are you going to put additional room at the middle school? Those who we've asked, including MVG, gravitate towards the courtyard as a good possibility. But again, once we have somebody come in and really look to design the additional space, it could end up somewhere else. But that's where it looks at first glance to make sense. And then the gym, this shows the gym for the ABECC where the playground for the preschool is, and the preschool playground could just relocate diagonally from that.
Say that again?
So,
where would it go?
Yeah,
theoretically.
It's not showing. Oh, there it is, right there. That area right in
there.
Yeah,
right there.
See?
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Could relocate there.
One of my questions.
So, well, I'll just finish up by saying I've also shown the fire station and the youth center. You can see what they're proposing there. If you stood at the corner, the triangle formed by Salem Street and Johnson Street, they would be adding to the front of the building, and I think that's a bay, additional bay at the back. Yep. And then the youth center right across the street would have some additional space added in the back. And this looks like it's on delay, but there it is there. So before I go any further, what I'd like to ask Al and Bill to come up and address, because this comes up a lot. People are always asking, how can you renovate and add to schools and not impact education and do so safely? So I just would like to ask these guys to come up and speak to that.
So I hope you can hear me. So typically, we've done many renovation projects in the past. So the first and foremost thing that you need to do is make sure the building is operating safely. So to do that, you need to completely separate the students, parents, and teachers from the construction site. The second piece is, and most importantly, is making sure you'll be able to deliver your educational curriculum. And so what we do is we work with the district to make sure that the population is sufficient enough so that you can run that while you renovate or you build new pieces of the school, depending on how it's laid out. The way we normally do it is we try to build as big of an addition as possible right up front. Separate that from the public, and then once that is complete, you shift that over and you have people move into that portion, and then you begin to renovate. In all cases, you have to work with the district to make sure that your educational program can meet that, and we'd have that discussion to see how much of the renovation and construction of the new we can do while still keeping that curriculum functioning. And all of that takes time. So the more we can take from the building while you're in school, the less time it's going to take. So typically a school would take about 18 to 24 months new construction. If you're doing additions, renovations, depending on how much we can take up in terms of construction, that may extend another 6 to 8 months, maybe a year, depending on how it is. So it can go up to 36 months, worst case scenario. But typically it's between 18 and 24 for most of the schools that you've seen here to be able to construct brand new. But in a phased situation, you're looking at probably averaging around 30 months to do that.
Say that last part again? The
I'm
phase
sorry?
construction would be, what was the last window of time?
Around 30 months, so 2 years, 2.5 years, depending on how much we can absorb. But every single project is different,
Right.
depending on how much we can grab up front. So the more we can grab up front while still delivering the curriculum, the less time it's going to take. So it can be 24 months, could be 28, could be 30, depending on how much we can work on up front.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And they'll be available for questions after the presentation. So once the school committee approves a recommendation, it goes to the Facilities Master Plan Phase 2 Committee, which includes, I have the members here, Lori Burzlaff, Steve Foster, Paul Hutchins, myself, Lynn Savage, and Jim Stanford. And as Al was just saying, the first discussion is going to be about prioritizing the projects and figuring out the timeline and what makes the most sense. Sorry, I have to speak into the mic. In the meantime, that committee is going to be meeting shortly once this recommendation is made, and then we'll be doing the public forums that we talked about to educate the public and answer questions that they might have. MVG will be at those meetings as well to answer questions, talking about the phasing. That seems to be the most common question we get. But as we said last time, Atkinson will be on the 18th, Franklin the 19th, Kittridge and the middle school the 25th and 26th. The senior center will be a daytime meeting on November 4th. The town hall will present to the select board, so it'll be available to whoever pays attention to the select board meetings on November 8th, and then the youth center on December 1st. And the process timeline. The school committee is going to make a recommendation to the Facilities Master Planning Committee. The Facilities Master Plan Committee is going to meet to discuss cost estimation and timeline. I think we might be meeting next week or the week after that. School projects, public forums are going to go from October to December. The Facilities Master Plan Committee deliberations will take place from October to March to get it ready for inclusion in the town meeting. And the public education and support initiatives will be working with MBG to figure out what else we need to do to help build support going into town meeting after these public forums are completed. That'll include messaging and the use of CAM and some more public forums. We're looking for, similar to Facilities Master Plan Phase 1, the process will be, at this moment it does look like it will be, the design of the first project would be asked for approval at town meeting in May of '22. The following year, the construction funding for that first project and the design of the next project, and then continue that process. Now, that doesn't mean that we have to only do one project a year or start one project a year. It could be that we can do more than one if possible. So that will be an option we will consider as well. And that's it. Any questions?
That's all you got, huh? All right, so I'm sure we do have some questions. We'll start from the home office there. Mrs. Picard?
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you so much to the committee and to Jim. So I have 4 questions that I've written down. And the first one is, will ABECC be included in the Facilities Master Plan 2? Or will that be somehow separate?
It will definitely be because well, I'm being presumptuous. If the school committee approves the recommendation that we're making, then it will be included.
Okay, it was not on that first slide.
Correct.
And I know it was added in the process of gathering information. So I just wanted to make sure that that was included. These 2 questions are kind of related. I think it's important for me and perhaps others in the community to understand what's the time frame that we're planning for. So we've done, buildings and renovations in town every 20 to 30 years. So is that the time frame that we're planning for, is the next 20 to 30 years? And if it is, my understanding at 35 people a year, new students a year, that we're talking between, in 20 years, we're talking 700 students, and in 30 years, we're talking about more than 1,000 students. So are our designs prepared to meet another 700 to 1,000 students?
So we've taken 2 factors into account. One is the anticipated growth, and the other being the class size goals of the school committee. And I think that 20 to 25 is the accurate number of what we're looking to build into for capacity.
That's helpful. And then I'm sure that somewhere on the website, it talks about the total number of classrooms that we're talking about adding. My recollection from the middle school is that we were looking at 15 additional classrooms to accommodate an extra team at each of the 3 grades. So is that correct? We're looking for 15 at NAMS and then some number at the elementaries?
So that'll get fleshed out more with the work we're going to do with MVG and the committee as far as, so for instance, if we had gone forward with a recommendation of renovating Kittridge, the capacity would have gone up to 371. But if we go forward with the recommendation to build, it makes sense to build that school to about 450. And that means that you might not need as many classrooms at a couple of the other elementary schools, Franklin and Atkinson. So it's going to depend on the recommendation we make, but we're shooting for that overall capacity. It just might be adjusted by school.
Okay, that makes sense. And I do recall you saying that, but sometimes it's just helpful to hear information a few times. And then my final question for the moment is, where does FinCom come in for all this? I saw a presentation to the select board, but I know we generally bring these things to FinCom, and they were very anxious to hear these things when we met with them last year.
Yeah, it's a good question. We're not specifically presenting to the select board. It just so happens that we were looking for, other than school venues, senior center made sense, the youth center and town hall, and they said, well, if you're going to come to town hall, why don't we do it during a select board meeting? FinCom's certainly welcome to attend any of the public forums we're going to have, but I also would imagine that there'll be discussions with FinCom, many discussions during the process.
Thank you. That's all for now. Thank you, Mr. McDevitt.
All right, Ms. Vichy Lynch? Sorry.
I have to
Oh, I
share a
didn't know
mic
you
here.
were sharing a microphone, sorry.
Yeah, I have a couple questions. So, and this actually ties into what Helen was asking. The NAMS renovation, to me, on that scale, looks very small. Is that going to be big enough to accommodate our middle school, both in the short term, but also to Helen's point in the long term, as we're adding 35 students per year?
Yeah, and like I said, when they take a closer look, because it's just a preliminary concept, they might decide it has to go somewhere else, but that's 2 levels as well. So the initial concept is understanding what that school needs, and that would meet those needs.
And then my second question is, are we renovating the other elementary schools based on what their current student population is now and projected to be? Or are we taking into consideration that some schools have more space and then we may redistrict a little bit? In other words, we're not confining our renovations just to what the schools have traditionally had, are we?
No, it's a great question. We don't want people to think that there's not going to be no redistricting. There will be some, not as much as if we closed an elementary school and had to reallocate, but there will be some, and we will take advantage of, you know, what makes the most sense. It might make sense to add a little bit more to this school than to that school, but definitely, yes.
Okay. Ms. Petrowski?
Yeah, I think my questions are a little bit similar. So when you had talked about the recommended square footage per student, does that calculation automatically include the growth that we're anticipating, or is that based on current data? So like, where do those numbers come in? Just again, because we want, if we're going 30 years out, we want to make sure that we're planned accordingly for that. And then does that change for elementary versus middle versus high school, or is it all the same for all grade levels?
Yep, 2 great questions. So I'll answer the second one first. It actually will change among elementary schools based on population, because not surprising to anybody, you get some economies of scale the larger you get. And so for a school under 300, it's 180 square foot per student, whereas if you get to the 371 that we talked about, it's at 172. So it changes, not a lot, but it does adjust slightly, and the same thing happens middle and high school. It goes down because of the economies of scale. Mm-hmm. And then your second question, remind me? Should have answered it first.
I'm not sure how you answered that now, sorry. So I asked, is the square footage recommendation, does it also include projected growth, or is it based on current?
Yeah, so I would ask, yeah, it does make sense, and I don't, if I was guessing, I'm going to ask these guys to address it. I would say it doesn't change a lot, but it's based on current educational standards, and I don't know how much has it changed over the years.
Explain is that when we design a school, we use, the MSBA guidelines, and within that, there's a utilization factor that we use, and I think it's around 85%. So there is, in the original, whatever the design may be, there's a little bit of growth built into it. And on top of that, we're basing our designs on a population that, total population. So whatever the size that we're given for any particular building, that's the recommended size that we're designing for. So that would make the building grow however it needs to grow. But each building has a little bit of growth already built in because the guidelines allow for that.
Okay, thank you. I think as we're moving forward, the more clear we can make that, the better, just because we're building for the future. My other questions are, sorry, I lost my train of thought. Oh, can we have a little bit more clarification on how construction works? Because I'm not in construction, I don't understand how it all goes down, but I think you said it was like 18 to 24 months to build new first. And then while you're building new, everything's happening status quo. I don't know, it just seems like, I don't know, it's not common knowledge, so it's a little overwhelming.
No, it's okay. Just to be clear, what I was saying for 18 to 24 months is, say, for example, we were building a brand-new school for, say, 500 kids. It'll take about that much time. In particular, when we're dealing with renovations, when I say we'll build a portion of that building, that usually would take place between 8 and 12 months for a wing. And then once that wing is complete, then you would move into that portion, most of the populations would go into that, and then we'd begin to renovate the existing school. So the total time frame would be another year, to finish, or a little more, depending on how much we can renovate, because you need some ancillary spaces, you need a cafeteria, you need administrative offices. We may not be able to do all of that work up front. So that's kind of what I mean. So you have to take it in chunks, and every chunk takes time. It's at least 3 to 4 or 5 months. Okay. And we try to improve on that if we can sort of overlap some of that work. So that's...
Yeah, because I'm just thinking of like the middle school, if we were building in the middle, that would be really hard to isolate, right?
Yep.
And then have students all around, and then once that's there, and then you're it's because
Yep.
it's so circular. It's just, and I get it. It's like a fluid thing, and it's happening.
Yeah.
And I just...
So in that particular example that you're given, when we looked at that, we looked at actually gaining access from one wing. We'd have to demolish to gain access to the road. So we'd have to separate that control point, and you'll have basically, be surrounded by existing, occupied building. But there's one portion that we actually demolished to get to the road. So it's not like, they're craning everything in. They have to gain access to it.
You might want to stay there because I have questions.
Not a problem.
I'm not interrupting you.
No. And so I guess again, I'm going to go back and really just reiterate that we need that data on the space, because I think that just is so important. And as a teacher, I don't want to get into my situation, but as a teacher for high needs population students, it seems that the students who need the most consistency often have the least amount of consistency, because we're constantly trying to find space for them. And so if we can just eliminate that problem, that would be huge. So really got to get that one right.
Yep. And that's how schools have changed over time, is that space just didn't exist years back.
Which is why I'm like, okay, so what's the square footage requirement then? Because over time, we're going to need more.
Right.
So if we think we need, 1,000 square feet, we probably need more than that. Just coming from the person who has been traveling with their students in the middle of the day trying to find a space, So anyway, I don't want to go on that. Thank you.
Okay.
So,
Mrs. Mably?
thank you.
Yep.
Related to what Pam was just talking about, I could see how, and Jim, you mentioned that, there will be some need for some redistricting type of stuff to make this all happen. You say you're going to make Kittridge much bigger, so I could see some people might need to move into that to make more space to work on other schools. Do you foresee, or would it be considered, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but would you bring portable classrooms to help during the construction time? Is that even
You absolutely might have to.
Yeah,
I would imagine, yes. But
that's part of the calculations. We try to avoid it because, if you're going for state funding, they don't reimburse for that. So this is why we're saying, we have to weigh the options of how much we can take of the renovations versus new. So if we have a very large addition, it's pretty straightforward. You build it first, you have plenty of capacity, all the kids go in there, and then you can renovate, and it's a real quick project. But if the smaller of the new construction, then you have to probably take some of that and some of this, maybe redistrict for a year, some of those students, so you can take more of the renovation, so you have enough space to start putting a lot of those kids in. So that's a conversation we need to have in detail with each school to figure out what's the best solution, and then that's how we can allocate a real time frame for that. So
right.
This is sort of high level to understand how it's done, but we need to get to that detail at some point.
But it does factor into the order in which you do. So just as an example, if we built a new Kittridge that was larger and accommodated 450, then that allows you to move more students in there and have less impacted by construction on one of the other sites.
which does make sense, for
Yep.
sure.
Yeah.
yes. And then, so we mentioned, I think, Jim, you said like we're looking at like 25 years out, kind of solving for 25 years. And we've seen from all some of the buildings, there have been 50 to 70 years that we've been using these buildings. Suppose, I mean, when we have done this in town here, that you hit a certain point where you do want to move certain grades because of space needs or population or what have you. Are there any, and this is back to kind of what Pam's talking about in terms of square footage, do we look at different square footage for middle school versus elementary? Are the elementary school classrooms smaller? Are they actually 3 times bigger? And so that if for some time, 30 years down the road, you need to do something to the Thompson School, but these other ones are in good condition but need some stuff, can we rejigger grade configurations down the road would be kind of, I guess. I don't know, that's a pie in the sky question, but.
It kind of is. I mean, we're dealing with what the situation is right now and trying to improve it and make it better for our students. We don't know, we have our projections of what's going to happen with the developments and enrollment growth, and it could go either way. It could go more, it could go less. I mean, it's been steady, and so that's why we're projecting that. But we would have to make those adjustments, you know, in whatever time span something changes. Whether that means we've had a sudden growth spurt that we hadn't expected, and we need foster farms. Right. And it's, you know, it makes sense this time. So it's just, we will continue to monitor this all along and make the adjustments that we have to make.
That's good, I guess, but we don't usually see, you don't see huge difference in size of rooms, do you necessarily? I'm sure what's in the rooms is very different, or do you see huge differences when you're designing?
When we're designing for specific standards that already have been allocated. So for example, you know, some of your elementary schools are about 750 square feet currently. You know, the current design requirements is 950. So you're growing 20-30% of that space. All the new spaces that we're going to be designing will be of the larger. And I think Jim alluded to, like, you know, all the half-size classrooms. Right now you have spaces that are 90 square feet. Some are 120. Well, a half-size classroom should be 500 square feet. So that's a half the size of a regular classroom. And your full-size classrooms are existing around 700, so you're almost close to a full-size classroom. So in terms of growth, it's already built in.
That's good.
Yeah, just one other thing about that. In going around, I think most of our classrooms are somewhere between 800 and 900, most of them. Mm-hmm. And so they're not at the 900 or 950 that might be recommended, but there's no way we could have all of our classrooms meet that. Asking for that. So, you know, if we meet our class size goals, those are certainly sufficient.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And then there's room for changes as well. These guys asked a lot of my questions already, I think. My one suggestion, I guess, or two questions. One is, could we have for the public forum schedule, maybe add, since we're talking about renovating Ann Bradstreet, and also since that's the entry point of families don't even have kids yet, could we add a forum there potentially?
We certainly can.
Because that's where you might attract the people who have 2-year-olds, because this is really what their school experience is going to be. And then on the Facilities Master Plan 2 Committee, the members here, will there be any community members or school committee members or town on this committee, or is this a set committee? Do you know?
I got an email the other day that I was on the committee, and this is who else is on it. I don't know. I'll find out.
Okay, and yeah, because I'm wondering if, like, during Facilities Master Plan 1, was there someone from police involved and DPW or whatever for their different buildings?
Yeah, I did participate in the first one as well.
Yeah, you did. That's good. Okay. And obviously you represent our interests, so that's good. And then also, there are enough people on here that are involved in finance, but I didn't know if there was a FinCom person in that.
So you have Paul Hutchins is our town,
Building
inspector.
Chief Building Inspector.
Yes, thank you.
I know Liz.
head of
I
the
know you.
department, right. And then
Steve
Jim
Foster.
Stanford is DPW director.
Okay.
Lynn Savage, you know,
Mm-hmm.
and who else is on there?
Lori Burzlaff.
And Lori, yep.
So there's no, and I know FinCom changes just like we change, this is a long-term committee, but I didn't know if they had anybody that was going to be weighing in as well.
Yeah, I'll find out.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
I think that, and again, thank you. I said it last time, that website that you all put together, your committee, I've spent hours looking at all that stuff. It's really helpful, it's really fascinating, and it was a lot of work, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. It's very helpful in trying to think through all of this.
That was Christie, a lot of Christie.
Really? Well, thank you. Amazing.
No, thank you.
All set?
Yes, thank you.
All right. You can sit down if you want.
perfect.
So-
Sorry, I made him do that.
You made him stand. I have something that I want to talk about before, but just to piggyback onto the Master Facilities Plan 2 committee, do they bring police and fire in on that? Like, is this like kind of a set committee and then they like will bring in some people to do some consulting and evaluation?
That's what happened the first time around.
Okay.
Yeah, people were brought in, yes.
Okay, just kind of to weigh in, but they're not necessarily there for every single meeting and
Correct.
all of that. Okay. Are those open to the public, do you know?
I don't, I would imagine that they have to be posted just like any other committee.
Okay.
Yep.
Perfect. All right. So I do have a couple of questions and thoughts, but before I do, I really just, again, want to say thank you to you, Dr. Mealy, and Holly, and the entire rest of the subcommittee. It's a massive undertaking to talk about space and how we are going to move and expand and do all of that. Not only did you guys kind of not just tackle like, hey, let's look at one school, we looked at everything in the entire district. Oh, and by the way, we did it virtually, so that, you know, just adds a whole other level of complexity and just communication and all of that stuff in. So thank you to everyone who participated either on the committee or attended one of the forums to provide the input for that. I've been here 10 years now, believe it or not, and you know, we've talked about space and the concerns and the constraints that we've had and looked at what this is going to be. And I remember, you know, in the very beginning, you know, with Mr. Limpert saying, you know, like, how do we change what these numbers are going to be? Like, our goal for class sizes, you know, we knew was too large, right? So we have incrementally kind of worked to come down. And the question was always like, okay, so what do we do other than build a new school or add on, right? And so we've had some modular additions that have come up. But this is major and this is significant. And this is, you know, truly a point in time for the community to kind of, you know, invest in education, continue to invest in education, but also just get us onto a different trajectory. I'm not sure exactly who did the designs. Was that you guys?
Yes.
Okay. Very good, very creative, like interesting, like some different things that I hadn't necessarily thought of. I know that they're not done and completed. As we kind of go in, and Dr. Mealy kind of mentioned, you know, we would have a design phase for a year. We would kind of go through that. At that point, would that kind of come back to the committee to discuss that? Like, what's the process for that? Like,
So, yeah, we would have the school building committee,
Okay.
which would be reporting back to the school committee during the whole process, but that's their function, is to oversee that and manage it.
and they would then report out to that.
Correct.
Okay. And so, you know, just like we've had the subcommittee there, we would have, I'm guessing, a number of community folks who would help participate into that. Faculty and staff are certainly kind of welcome to be part of that as well. I think that if anybody knows the ins and outs of our buildings, it's, well, maybe the students on how to sneak around, but, you know, really the faculty on what they need in terms of just space and what that all looks like. Okay. So my other kind of question, a little bit more of process. So today, in theory, we will make a motion, or someone will make a motion, and we will make a recommendation to the Master Facilities Plan, which I guess will start meeting in another week or so. At that point, they may start to look at cost, and they may say, we're doing one. We're doing none. We're doing all of this. Is that correct?
My understanding is that the determination will be what's it going to cost, what order should they go in, and how long do we anticipate this taking? And then getting approval for that. Now, a big part overriding all of this is how would that cost get funded? And that's the role of, that's where the town manager really comes in, to have a plan of, okay, we know what the needs are, how are we going to fund it, and how long will both the construction take and the funding allow us to complete these?
Okay. So again, just the really three things, cost and how we're funding for it, the order of the projects, and some of that may be based upon duration. Okay. So at this point, we would make a recommendation to them. This is what our needs are. And then I'm not saying we're passing it, right? But then it becomes part of the Master Facilities Plan 2 committee to kind of work through some of the details, the cost, all of those pieces that are there. Our job then, I think, and help correct me if I'm wrong, moves into the public perception of this, right? So all of the meetings that you have, the forums that are out there, right, to be present, to be visible, to advocate for all of this, whether it's, at a session that might be here at the Atkinson, and leading up to things of town hall. The Master Facilities Plan team, again, will be the one that will assess all of the costs with that, correct?
Correct,
Yeah,
including operating costs.
Okay.
That's a part of it as well.
All right.
Because we're impacting two things going forward, the capital budget and the operating budget.
Okay, perfect, okay. And I'm just gonna say two last things here, because I just think that they're important. When I look at the middle school plan, you don't have to put it up or anything, but what I see in the rendition here, and I know that we're a long way, it looks like probably adding in something like 6 classes, 2 stories, 12. I'm not sure that would really, help us that much today as we kind of go forward. I mean, we are so overcrowded that 6 to 12 classes, helping to break that up, I don't think really is that impactful. Never mind the possibility of adding 30-something students district-wide per year as we kind of move forward. And then, when I look at the ABECC, I know that Mrs. Picard mentioned it, but, it is not listed on that school renovations and additions slide 2, and I'm sure it's just an oversight, but I really would like to see that updated, because there are a number of families who kind of come in, their first introduction is the ABECC, and they kind of look around and say, like, okay, so where's the gym? Like, this is the, like all of those things. So that, I think, is a really key piece to this. So it very creative, again, in terms of what's going on and what's there. But those are just some of my initial thoughts there. So,
Mr. McDevitt, do you mean slide 17? Is that the one you're talking about?
oh,
That-
God,
got
I
it
don't,
right?
they're not numbered for me.
The option
wait,
1A?
they are. Sorry. If I could read it.
It's tiny.
I can say that
Option
know.
1A.
if the recommendation is made this evening as presented, then they will definitely be added to the list going forward, and as suggested, we will schedule a public forum there as well.
Okay. I do think it is option 1A, Mrs. Mabley, on 17, but also it looks like slide 2 as well. And we can't forget our Bradstreet Bears. Okay.
Yeah,
We-
okay, thank
we-
you.
We
Yep,
absolutely will not forget
absolutely.
the Bradstreet, and I think really important is meeting with MVG last week. I had a chance, or this past week, to meet with MVG and the town manager and Dr. Mealy and some folks. Is, the number one priority is always the health and safety, right? Because when you have these big construction projects going on, you got to think about the health and safety of our students, and then the second most, 1A is, us continuing to deliver a high-quality curriculum to our kids. So I've lived through a couple projects here in North Andover, being my 24th year here, moving from the high school when, into a new high school when they tore down the old one, but I'm also, was at the tail end of another project, and you have to take all that into account. And so it's, they have a lot of experience doing that, And I thought that was important to mention too. So.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Any other questions from the committee? All right, I'm seeing a head shake. Okay, so that concludes the school's capacity project report out. We would move on now to old business, which is discussion and approval of a recommendation to the town's master facility planning committee for phase 2 of the master plan. There's like a lot of masters and plans in there. All right, is there a motion?
Mr. McDevitt, I would like to move that the committee adopt the recommendation of the subcommittee of option 1A.
All right, is there a second? Sorry. Second. Okay, Ms. Petrowski with a second. All right, additional discussion. Mrs. Picard, sorry. Nothing?
No, I'm good.
Vichy Lynch, Mrs. Petrowski, Mrs. Mably.
No,
All
I
right.
appreciate all you going through all this again, Jim. I know we've heard this a lot. I hope that the public is going to engage. We thought they might come tonight, but hopefully they will engage in the coming months as we have all these forums. Because this is a massive, very exciting time for our district, and I hope people get on board with us. So, thank you for the work.
Can I just add that it's kind of like that Winston Churchill quote, right? Where this is not the end, it's not even the beginning of the end, it's the end of the beginning, and we have a lot of work to do going forward from here.
Well, which is very, very exciting. So, thank you for shepherding us to this point of the end of the beginning of the end.
Right.
Well, and I would add, the other famous statement that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago, and the second best time is today. So this is going to be such a long-term process, and the sooner we can get it going, the sooner we can better serve our students.
Okay. All right, so before we call for a vote, I just want to confirm, Mrs. Picard, that in option 1A, even though it's not listed, the ABECC is your intention. Is that correct?
That is correct, Mr.
Okay.
McDevitt.
Perfect. All right. So any further discussion? I don't see any. We'll move to a roll call vote. Mrs. Picard?
Enthusiastically, yes.
Enthusiastically, yes. All right. Can you top that, Mrs. Vichy Lynch?
Yes.
Yes. All right. Mrs. Petrowski?
A really excited yes.
Really excited, yes. Mrs. Mably?
Yes.
Yes. And the chair votes yes. So 5-0, our recommendation to the town's facility master planning committee for phase 2 will go forward with renovations to Atkinson, Franklin, ABECC, and the middle school with a new Kittridge. Wow, that sounds crazy to say. Thank you. All right.
Mr. McDevitt, can I ask a related question?
Yes.
We will be able to continue to request MSBA funds each year as we go forward. Is that correct, Dr. Mealy?
Yes. Yes.
It is correct. We do have a submission in. They have not yet responded with their initial response to districts or communities, but we can continue to do so as well. And it does not, they're individual projects that we submit each year. So we could get one approved and not the others.
Perfect.
Do we have a plan now to make it more attractive to them?
They said it does. Yeah. So we'll see.
Awesome. Great. All right. Well, thank you very much. You're welcome to stay. We won't be offended if you leave.
Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be seeing you a lot, I hope.
gonna say
All right. Okay, we are going to move on to discussion of the Superintendent School Committee Goals 11A.
All right, Dr. Mealy, if you could,
Does everyone have them? Okay, perfect.
Draft, yeah.
Thank you.
if you could project, Dr. Mealy, that PDF I sent you. So every year around this time, we typically start to have a discussion around goals. And we typically talk about last year's goals. I think we spent quite a bit of time in June reviewing those goals and the progress we made. Typically in this first discussion, we set some forward, and I wanted to put a few forth tonight to put them out to the committee, so for some feedback for next time. The shared goals, and the biggest one, goal number 1, is to collaborate with municipal officials and engage residents to ensure appropriate and adequate educational facilities and funding in the future to decrease class sizes and to better meet the needs of all students. And I think we're off to a good start with that one tonight. I applaud the group there, but that's a big one, and that would be what I would propose is a shared goal with the school committee and the superintendent, with Dr. Mealy, of course. And then, as superintendent, you look at goals and you look at, continuing to get kids ahead. So through ongoing discussion with the district and our school-based teams, we'll continue to identify and address any learning gaps resulting from the myriad of challenges of the various teaching and learning models employed during the COVID-19 pandemic. And, I think we have to continue to work at getting our kids ahead and taking key actions to do so. And I also believe that, as a district, we have to continue our support to a commitment to social justice and equity for all of our students and staff, and continue on working to create a culture that reflects and respects and embraces, the students in which we have the pleasure to serve. And then, so tackling space, tackling academics, tackling, equity for all. And then, I wouldn't be so presumptuous to say that, I'm proposing the school committee goal. I had the pleasure to connect with the chair and the vice chair, and I don't know if either of them want to speak to, a first working draft of a proposed school committee goal, which is communicating and engaging with the community to advocate for the district with residents and town leadership.
Right, it relates a lot to the shared goal, but it also continues what we were, working on these last couple of years about communicating clearly, respectfully, and getting the word out and getting engaged with our community, because we're going to need our full community to partner over the next several years to bring to fruition what we're all proposing, right? We want to improve education of our schools, and we need parent involvement, and we need community member involvement, not just people with kids in school. And so that's a very important goal for us, and should really be a focus for this year in particular. Okay. Suggesting.
All right. And so, Mr. McDevitt, did you want to add anything?
No, I was going to ask if people had questions or concerns or things, but were you wrapping up, or?
Oh, no, I was just going to say, I'm glad we've made the decision to start this even earlier than we've done in the past. I think it's really timely, and if people have feedback, certainly get it to myself or to Chair McDevitt or Michelle McHugh, and would be happy to look at it so we can bring it forward next time and incorporate any suggestions folks might have.
All right. We'll kind of, even though it's a first reading, we'll see if the committee has any thoughts, questions, or concerns at this point. So I will start with you, Mrs. Picard.
Yeah, I like this as a first draft. I was looking at some of the things we've had in the past. I think it'd be great if we have fewer goals so that we can really focus on what we're doing. Obviously, we're not going to leave behind, all the things from our strategic plan. One thought that I have that I would raise to the committee, we did have the coffee chats last year, and looking at what our plan is for communication around the building projects and the opportunities for a back and forth in all the different schools, I'm wondering if maybe that replaces the coffee chats, at least for the first half of the year. And, honestly, probably for the second half of the year, because we're going to continue to have opportunities for back and forths with people, I'm assuming, all the way through to town meeting. So I just wanted to mention that. It did come up at our retreat this summer.
Yep. So I'll just answer that quickly. At this point, honestly, I wanted to have everybody focused on what the recommendation was going to be to the master facilities plan. And I think that the month, if I remember correctly, I'm off on pages here, basically the entire month of October is a lot of different public forums specific to this, but I do think we should, try to heighten the attendance at PTO meetings and also bring ourselves into an opportunity to just chat. I mean, I think we're now kind of more in person. I don't know if we would do that virtually or have some virtual, have some in person, but definitely worth exploring, but wanted to get through tonight first.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Mrs. Vichy Lynch?
No, thank you.
No? Mrs. Petrowski?
Nope, I don't have any questions. These are relevant and works well for what we need to do to recover from last year and moving forward in the current situation in the society, in our community. Yep. Thank you.
Perfect. Mrs. Maley?
Looks like a great working draft, and I'll look at it further.
Okay.
It looks great. I like the focus very much.
Great. So the only thought that I would have is, as Dr. Gilligan mentioned, we're bringing this up, we're having this conversation a lot earlier than we have in the past. We, typically at the end of June, try to kind of assess where we were with these. So I would just challenge the committee, myself included, to start in the springtime assessing what our next goals are going to be. I think it's important for Dr. Gilligan to have the summer to plan for those as we kind of move forward and before the school year starts. So that's really kind of my only thought. But any thoughts or updates, if you have any things, please send them to me. We can add them into the document and discuss at our next meeting, October 7th, as we look to move forward with this. So, all right. And now we're on to public comment. So, that's public comment.
Name
and address.
Hmm?
Name and address.
Stan Lippert, 43 Stonecliff Road. Hearing this wonderful presentation that Dr. Mealy gave us, but looking at all these empty chairs does not give me a warm feeling. It really doesn't. This has been a struggle that the school committee has had ever since I've been involved, which is to try to get the community to come and tell us what they think. This is the challenge. And usually they only show up at the last minute and then give you a bunch of hot advice that you can't use. So we're thinking about doing the most aggressive activity that maybe this town has ever tried. This is a $120 million construction program, not counting the fire station and the youth center. We're talking about major money. And the high school was built for $54 million. Now, admittedly, if we did it in today's dollars, it'd probably be $100 million, but that's a different story, right? This is the biggest thing we will have ever tried, ever. And it's going to take everyone trying to get the community to understand both what the importance of all of this is and why they should support it, why it's in the best interest of them and our community. And so it's going to be a big push. Now, the last thing that we did that I had some vague recollection of was the debt exclusion override that was passed in 2007 when the schools were, it was awful. We had lost all kinds of money. Things were terrible, overcrowding in classrooms, blah, blah, blah. And we turned out, lawn signs and people and banners, and they worked like crazy. That was for like $1.4 million. So we're talking about an effort here that's large, but important to our community. So I think that's going to be the challenge, is to try to figure out how we're going to do that. And, there's going to be all kinds of help we need with websites and from, architects who are going to have to, give us some pretty pictures to show people. But this is going to be hard, and we have to admit that to ourselves, that it's going to take a lot of work to make this happen. So, you know, when do we start? Do we start now? Do we start later? You know, when I look at the Facilities Master Plan 2 committee, those are a bunch of folks that aren't going to easily throw around town money. Many of them are pretty conservative fiscally. So we're also going to have to sell them too to get on that agenda in the way we want. Numbers of challenges here. So I just wanted to say, I think it's important, you know, if we could try to start to get our community to help us do that, I think that could be really helpful and important. So thank you.
Well said. Thank you. Any other public comment? All right, we will jump around the horn here. Mrs. Picard?
Yes, I just really want to thank everybody again for their input. And I also want to give a shout out that the North Andover Parent Resource Network is back in action. And they do have an upcoming event on October 5th from 10 to 11 in person at Central Office. And the topic is anxiety, and it's following up from the documentary that was shared with the community, the documentary Angst. So, you know, if folks are dealing with anxiety in their families, particularly among their students, this is a really great opportunity, and I'm very thankful to the volunteers that are working on that, and congratulate them on a nice start. And I know that they have a series planned for the year. So that's under the Building Respectful Communities banner at this point. And so I'm thankful to the administration for supporting that effort, and as well as the parents. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Mrs. Vichy Lynch?
I just want to thank Helen for bringing that up, and I have nothing further.
All right. Mrs. Petrowski?
I don't really have that much. I was here the other night for open house and to meet the 5th grade team. It's my last year at Atkinson, which is a little weird. But it's also exciting to hear that we are starting to establish a 5th grade parent committee, and hopefully we'll get some end of the year activities for these kiddos. So that's really exciting, and I'm happy to be part of that. I was part of the last 2 for my other 2 children, so it's exciting.
It's been a long haul, but we're happy to see you graduate from Atkinson, so well done.
Thanks.
All right, we'll clap you out. Mrs. Mabley?
No, I think what Mr. Limpert had to say is critical. I confess I'm disappointed that we don't have very many people here, but I meant to ask. I did not hear from a single person about this in the last several weeks, or even last spring, or other than the participation that people already had. Maybe that means they're thrilled with the recommendation. That would be great. But I hope that more people who are thrilled will get on board and help to spread exactly what Mr. Limpert was saying, is how important this is and what it's going to entail. It's not a small undertaking, but you know, we wish that some of this stuff had happened 20 years ago as well, right? So we don't want to be dropping the ball on getting done what needs to be done. And I hope that people watching will join us with that.
I agree. I mean, I think if you look at even the school committee members that are here, I mean, all of our children will probably be close to graduating by the time any shovel hits the ground here, and I don't think it will impact any of us. So, you know, really this is very much for the next generation that's kind of coming up and through our schools, and the legacy of building this and spending this much money and investment in our town, as Mr. Limpert said. Absolutely true. So I think I'm optimistic that now that there is a plan and people know what direction we're going in, the excitement is just, it's going to be epic. So very, very excited. So with that being said, I would take a motion to adjourn to our next meeting on October 7th, 2021.
So moved.
Mrs. Mabley?
Second.
I'm sorry, who was that?
Second.
Okay.
Me.
Any discussion? All right, we'll do a roll call vote. Mrs. Picard?
Yes.
Mrs. Vichy Lynch? Mrs. Petrowski?
Yes.
Mrs. Mabley?
Yes.
The chair votes yes. We are adjourned, and it is 9:55. 8:55, I'm sorry.